Okay, so I am kicking myself right now for not doing this earlier, because Fullmetal Alchemist has examples of some really interesting versus battle videos, including this one. Roy Mustang, the Flame Alchemist versus the Homunculus Greed. Now the first thing to cover here first before we get into the fight is that I'll be using feats and references from the three main sources of Fullmetal Alchemist: the manga, Brotherhood, and the 03 Fullmetal Alchemist. Just to get that out of the way. Whether or not you consider any or all of these the official source or canon for FMA, I think it'll be more interesting to use each one accordingly. The second thing to cover is that I'll be covering this fight in two separate scenarios. The first is going to be the Roy Mustang that we predominantly see in the series versus the OG Greed that captured Al, fought Ed and Izumi, and was taken down by Wrath. Now, the interesting thing about this fight is that Mustang and Greed are examples of two completely different kinds of fighters. Like, for the most part, as in 95% of the time, they are complete opposite. Greed primarily deals in close quarters fighting using the good old fisticuffs, relying more on the strength of his ultimate shield to deal out damage. While Colonel Mustang, on the other hand, while I'm sure, with being trained as a soldier, he has some experience in hand-to-hand close quarters combat, but for the most part, he relies on his long-range flame alchemy to deal out damage. Now, the best thing to cover here first is probably the subject of intel, more specifically, how much knowledge each opponent has on each other. For later in round 2, this could change, but here in round 1, it's safe to say that both Greed and Mustang will not have any prior knowledge of each other. Greed's never met Mustang, and Mustang's never met Greed, so this might depend on how quickly each opponent can figure out each other's abilities. For Mustang, because he has a vast knowledge of alchemy and is said in the series itself to be one of the best state alchemists, if the fight goes on for long enough, then I'm sure at some point he will be able to figure out how Greed's ultimate shield works. And both the 03 and Brotherhood, Edward didn't take too long in being able to figure it out himself, and while I can't say who was really smarter, especially in terms of alchemy, though going off feats I'd say Edward, they can't be too far in between one another in terms of intelligence. For Greed, though he may not be a natural genius like Ed and Mustang, being alive for more than 100 years plus can give someone some vast knowledge through experience. In the 2003 FMA specifically, when quote-unquote Lyra uses the transmutation circle to weaken Greed, as soon as he sees it and it activates, Greed knows exactly what it is. So his knowledge of alchemy could be more extensive than we see on the surface. The thing is though, is that depending on where they fight, even if Greed were able to figure out how Mustang's flame alchemy works, I doubt he'd be able to stop it by conjuring up a plan to douse his gloves with water. And speaking of, this is going to be a fight where we go off the assumption that it's not raining, just to clear that up. So when it comes to outsmarting Mustang, I don't think it's going to happen for Greed. So then the next aspect to cover is speed and reaction time of both characters. So the first Greed is kind of hard to scale in terms of speed. He only has two fights, his fight with Ed and his fight with Bradley, both of whom Mustang has fought too. Well, kind of. His fight with Ed in the 03 anime, and then he technically fights with an injured King Bradley in Brotherhood, but that's also technically not a fight, as it's mainly Bradley just blitzing him and pinning him to the ground. With Greed's fight with Edward in both versions, they're both fighting relative to each other at different times. Like, even when Greed isn't holding back and Ed is worn down, Ed still fights on par with them in terms of combat speed. And when it comes to this Edward speed, since at this point he hasn't equipped in his Northern Automail yet, which makes him both lighter and faster, the best place to scale him here is his second fight with Scar, as he fights relative to Scar, and it isn't until he equips his Northern Automail that he's noted by Jerso to be faster than Scar. And Scar is one of the faster characters in the series, being able to dodge a good bit of Hawkeye's bullets when firing at him, and fighting on par with a weakened Bradley. Though Bradley didn't have his ultimate eye in that fight, so maybe keeping up with him here isn't as impressive, but considering the fact that Bradley is one of the strongest and fastest characters in the series, I'd say it's worth noting. Now, while Mustang might not be a speedster in his own right, he is shown fighting and reacting well enough to the nameless soldiers that the Gold-Tooth Doctor trained in order to fight Ed, Scar, Hawkeye, and Mustang. The Doctor says that at one point these were candidates to become King Bradley, and even though they may not be as strong as Bradley himself, they are incredible fighters in their own right. And at this point, I don't believe the Doctor knows anything about Bradley being weakened or nerfed by Greedling, Fu, and Buccaneer, so he's comparing them to a peak Bradley. So this is to say that while Mustang may not be as fast as Greed when it comes to travel speed or combat speed, he might be able to react to his hand-to-hand fighting pretty well. So then this comes to the subject of Greed's shield and how Mustang's flame alchemy can combat it. Now, I'm not a scientist, so take my breakdown with a genuine grain of salt. But from what I understand, Greed's shield is made up of graphene, which is a material made from graphite and is made up of pure carbon. Now, graphene is highly resistant to heat, supposedly being able to withstand heat levels up to 3000 degrees Celsius. However, depending on the oxygen in question, its composition and resistance can be affected. And from what I understand, the way Mustang's flame alchemy works is that he alters the composition of the air to guide his sparks towards his target. So, in theory, Mustang can alter the oxygen in the air in order to increase the combustion when he uses his flame alchemy, meaning that it's a strong possibility that even if Greed were to use his ultimate shield around his entire body, that Roy's flame alchemy would still be able to get through the shield and break it down. Now, if you are on the side of Mustang not being able to get through Greed's shield, then I'll speak to that side too. If Mustang can't injure Greed with the shield, then the only option is to do so while Greed isn't in his full shield, which brings me to the subject of character. Now, if we talk about Mustang's character, if he figures out that he's fighting a homunculus, I feel he's more liable to take this fight as seriously as he needs to. Greed, on the other hand, might start to fight Mustang the same way he fought Ed, which was at first not going all out and using his full ultimate shield. Now, he does say he doesn't like to use it because of the way it makes him look, and while that's still true, I think you could say he held back against Edward because, well, he was a kid. And we know that Greed does have a code about not fighting women if he can avoid it, so the same probably applies to children as well. So if we say that Greed doesn't hold back against Mustang, but still doesn't use his full shield, then honestly, Mustang might have all he needs to win the fight. Because at that point, he's got the range on Greed, and if he lands a good clean flame attack on Greed, he's got another opening to keep on attacking, as Greed can't heal and harden his body at the same time. Funny enough, actually, even if Greed is able to get into his full shield in time, it's arguable whether or not Greed's eyes are shielded too. I mean, they do change colors, so it's possible that they could be, but if they aren't, Mustang can aim for his eyes as he's just as good at pinpoint accuracy. Now, it is also possible that if Mustang can't injure Greed while he's in his full shield, that he can use alchemy on the shield itself to create an opening. The problem with that, though, is that in this fight, Mustang doesn't have the ability to just clap his hands and perform alchemy the way that Ed does. Meaning, it's more likely that in order for Mustang to use alchemy to create an opening, he'll have to actually draw a transmutation circle on Greed in order to do so. And in the concept of the fight, I don't know if Mustang will have the speed or time to do that. Though, now that I think about it, there have been plenty of scenes where we see characters just draw a random transmutation circle in a matter of seconds. So, I guess it could be possible. But all in all, I think this round goes to Mustang, as I think he has just more of the edge over Greed. I think from 1 to 10, I'd say Mustang takes it like 8 out of 10 times. Now, round 2 will be Roy Mustang with his Flame Alchemy, plus being able to transmute by clapping his hands after seeing the Gate of Truth, versus Greedling. This is, of course, Greed being fused with Ling Yao of Xing. Also, this will be Mustang with his eyesight, not blind. I just don't think it'd be fair to have a blind Mustang fight Greedling. Anyway, now, this one's actually kind of interesting. As far as Greed versus Mustang specifically, everything from round 1 still applies, just a little bit better for Mustang, as not only can he still possibly injure Greed through his ultimate shield, but even if he can't, he can just use the clapping transmutation to alter Greed's shield's composition in order to create an opening. But that's where the change is, because Ling Yao is one of the best and fastest fighters in the series. Right off the bat, he definitely is faster than the first Greed, at least from what we've seen. And altogether, Greedling survived 3 separate encounters with Bradley. The first was when he fought Bradley as just Ling, and that was Ling who was having to worry about not only Bradley, but Gluttony too. And he was fighting primarily on defense, trying to protect Lanfang. The second encounter was at Bradley's house, and it was just Greed fighting Bradley, and was fighting decently enough, but did end up getting overwhelmed. And then the last encounter was both Greed and Ling fighting Bradley, first in a 1v1, and then he got some backup from Old Man Fu. And even though Greedling lost all 3 of those encounters, with the last one kind of being a draw, the fact that he survived 3 encounters in a row definitely says a lot. What makes it even more impressive is that 2 of those encounters, Greedling fought Bradley with Bradley using his ultimate eye. One of the more impressive feats to me, especially when it comes to speed, is when Ling was able to both switch with Greed and save Fu from Bradley's attack when Fu was literally right at Bradley's feet. And while Mustang did decent enough against the Bradley fake soldiers, he wasn't able to hit Bradley when Bradley tried to speed blitz him and pin him to the ground. And that was Bradley while being injured and not having his ultimate eye. Granted, Mustang was kind of focused on Hawkeye, but he still had enough time to turn around, snap his fingers for an attack, and it still missed. So right off the bat, Greedling has both hand-to-hand fighting and speed over Mustang. And this was all without mentioning that Lee himself is a sensory type of fighter, which will definitely come in handy when combined with his speed and his agility. So while Mustang might have range on Greedling in more ways than just his Flame Alchemy, it seems more than likely that Greedling will be able to avoid his attacks. And as I said, if it got to close quarters hand-to-hand, Mustang definitely gets cooked. Now, there is still a chance for Mustang to hit Greedling with his pinpoint accuracy being pretty good. So I'm not entirely saying that it's impossible for Mustang to catch him off guard. And we see that he can clap his hands and use defensive moves like putting up a wall to defend himself. So I definitely do think Mustang has what it takes to not only put up a good fight, but also possibly win this. But then it just becomes a possible battle of attrition. Like, how long can Mustang hold out for and kill Greedling enough time before Greedling ends up outmaneuvering him and taking the win? Granted, if Mustang is able to really get a good, powerful flame attack on Greedling and forces him to the ground or something, and if Mustang acts quick enough, he can do what he did against Envy and Lust and just keep repeatedly stabbing his fingers over and over until he finally kills Greedling. I think from 1 to 10, I'd say this fight is very, very close, with Greedling having more of an advantage overall. Like, I feel like if he wins 7 or 8 out of 10 times. With him being just a ninja overall and having his ultimate shield, plus regen, and being faster than Mustang himself and being better in hand-to-hand, I think Greedling just has more of an advantage, but I don't think Mustang gives him an easy fight. I think Mustang can put up a really good fight with both his eyesight, first of all, being able to use transmutation just by clapping, and this Flame Alchemy. So there's the video. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. Let me know in the comments what you think. This is my very first Fullmetal Alchemist first battle video in itself. So I'm really excited for this one. I got more in mind on the way. But if you have any more ideas for Fullmetal Alchemist videos, for either first battle videos or just any kind of videos, let me know in the comments what you guys think. But anyway, thank you all for watching all the way in the end. If you have, be sure to like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the bell for more notifications. Till the next one, like and snow, out.